Welcome to this explainer. I've got to say, I am genuinely thrilled to take you on this journey today because we are stepping right up to the absolute edge of theoretical biology. We're not just looking at some weird deep-sea creatures here. We are going to sketch out a completely alien organism built entirely from scratch. And we're going to do the whole thing without using a single drop of chemistry. No carbon, no water, absolutely no chemical bonds.
So, here's the big question. What if we completely remove electromagnetism from the equation and try to build life using literally nothing but gravity? I want you to just completely shatter your understanding of a normal biological cell. We are plunging headfirst into the chaotic, crushing, ultra-dense universe of a stellar remnant. Think like the churning crust of a neutron star, just to see what happens when gravity takes the wheel.
Okay, let's dive into this. To understand gravitational life, we kind of have to dismantle why life currently relies on chemistry in the first place. Standard chemistry uses electromagnetism to share electrons between standard atoms, right? But dark biology? It relies entirely on gravity, stable orbits, and what we call degenerate mass nodes. So why the massive swap?
The answer is hidden in this absolutely massive number, 36. You see, electromagnetism is exactly 36 orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. Think about it. A tiny, cheap little fridge magnet can pick up a paperclip, effortlessly defeating the gravitational pull of the entire planet Earth. Because gravity is just so unbelievably weak on small scales, you just can't build a life form out of standard protons and electrons. Their mass is way too low. We need something so much heavier.
So what builds our new foundation? Well, enter the mass node. Imagine an entity the size of an atomic nucleus, but packing the mass of an entire asteroid. It's wild. In the ultra-dense cosmic soup of a neutron star, floating chunks of degenerate matter or primordial black holes act as these mass nodes. At this extreme density, micro-gravitational attraction completely takes over. Instead of atoms snapping together to form static molecular bonds, these mass nodes fall into stable, constantly moving n-body solar systems.
So how do we actually map out a biological cell when mass replaces electromagnetism? We basically have to visually translate our chemical anatomy into pure orbital mechanics on our whiteboard. Every single structure in this new Grav-Cell has to be defined by gravity, momentum, and spatial geometry.
And this brilliantly illustrates how that translation fundamentally works. In chemical biology, a lipid bilayer acts as the cell membrane. But in dark biology, that boundary is the Hill sphere. That's the exact region of space where the organism's gravity dominates the background environment. Anything crossing that threshold, it gets pulled right in. The nucleus becomes the primary mass core, basically the heaviest anchor of the organism. And DNA? Well, that gets replaced by orbital resonance.
Now, you might be wondering, how do you solve the problem of genetic memory without DNA? You use orbital resonance. This happens when orbiting bodies lock into regular, repeating mathematical ratios. It's like having an inner node orbiting exactly 4 times for every 2 times the middle node orbits and once for the outer node. So a 4-to-1 ratio. Our gravitational organism relies on thousands of these nodes locked into unimaginably complex resonant chains. So information isn't stored in molecular locks anymore, it's stored in this beautifully synchronized mathematical clockwork.
But listen, life isn't just a static blueprint, right? It's an active survival process. If you were somehow listening to this cell operating underneath the heartbeat-like rhythm of its orbits, you'd hear a faint, continuous, high-pitched whirring sound. The cell is constantly working, and that means it has to fight entropy. Basically, it has to eat.
But what exactly is it fighting against? General relativity. As these extremely massive objects orbit each other at incredibly high speeds, they emit gravitational waves. They're literally dragging and rippling the fabric of spacetime, and that carries energy away from the system. If the Grav-Cell does nothing, its orbits will decay, the nodes will lose momentum, and they will literally crash into the central core. To survive, the organism absolutely must feed on kinetic energy.
So how does a creature made entirely of gravity eat? It uses a perfectly timed 3-body gravitational slingshot. Step 1. It opens a small gap in its Hill sphere to capture a wild, free-floating mass. Step 2. It swings that wild mass dangerously close to one of its inner structural nodes. Step 3. It ejects the mass out the other side like exhaust. During that swing, kinetic momentum is transferred right to the organism, boosting its orbit. Its digestive tract is basically a precisely calculated trajectory through a maze of gravity wells. It literally breathes momentum.
Now, where there's an ecosystem, there is always a darker side. There are predators. But think about it. How do you hunt without teeth or claws or digestive acids? Well, in dark biology, predators hunt by aggressively altering their own internal geometry to basically weaponize physics.
To really understand this, we need to look at the Roche limit. This is an astrophysical concept that defines the distance at which a celestial body, one that's held together only by its own gravity, just disintegrates because of another body's tidal forces. The predator purposefully uses this to create a massive localized tidal gradient. It turns gravitational shear into the ultimate weapon.
So here's the attack. The predator elongates its shape to generate this intense shear and forces it to intersect with the prey's hill sphere. Suddenly, the gravity acting on the near side of the prey becomes vastly stronger than on the far side. With a silent, invisible snap, the prey's delicate harmonic resonance is violently pulled out of alignment. Its biological clockwork just shatters. The prey undergoes this brutal microscopic spaghettification, drawn out into a long stream of orbital debris that the predator then effortlessly consumes for mass and momentum. It's ruthless.
But hey, this ecosystem isn't just about death, it's also about birth. And reproduction here looks absolutely nothing like the orderly, careful unzipping of DNA we see in chemical mitosis. As a Grav-Cell eats and grows, its core spins faster and faster until it fundamentally flattens out and violently splits in two. It's essentially a controlled fission event. This throws the entire organism into a highly chaotic three-body regime. But much like how Saturn's moons shepherd its rings, the surviving resonant chains use gravitational shepherding to eventually pull all that debris back into two separate, newly formed cells. It's this spectacular display of survival of the fittest, governed purely by orbital mechanics.
But what happens when a Grav-Cell starves? In our chemical world, a dying organism decays, slowly giving its atoms back to the environment as chemical bonds break down. But in this incredibly dense environment, gravity doesn't unravel. Gravity only pulls.
When an organism simply cannot find wild momentum to consume, the merciless laws of relativity take full control. With unreplenished momentum, those beautifully synchronized orbits begin to relentlessly shrink. The delicate resonances, the biological memories and functional proteins of the cell begin to intersect and cross each other. The intricate clockwork astrolabe descends into total chaos as the nodes just rain down onto the central core.
And as those nodes in-spiral, spinning faster and faster, they emit a final signal, the death chirp. Imagine a high-pitched, rapidly accelerating whoop-whoop-whoop sound actually rippling through the fabric of space-time. There's a blinding, localized flash of energy, and then just nothing. A graveyard of dark biology wouldn't look like rotting matter. It would be a perfectly silent, freezing expanse filled with microscopic, inert black holes that just collapsed under their own terrifying weight.
Okay, let's shake off that dark image for a second and pull our perspective all the way out to the sweeping arms of the Milky Way. Life is, at its fundamental core, a localized decrease in entropy. It's a system that processes energy and information. If this bizarre, gravity-based biology is actually out there, hidden in the dark matter halos or the ultra-dense cores of dead stars, how would we practically discover it?
Well, optical telescopes are completely useless here. We can't look for light, and we certainly can't scan the area for atmospheric oxygen. To find this kind of life, we have to change our entire approach. We must listen for them. We literally have to listen for those microscopic ripples in the fabric of space-time using gravitational wave detectors.
Doing this requires a complete shift in our astronomy. Standard gravitational wave astronomy usually listens for the deafening, isolated roars of giant black holes crashing into each other. But biosignature hunting for dark biology? That would look completely different. With next-generation LIGO facilities, we wouldn't hear a single massive crash. We would hear a continuous, high-frequency, complex chatter. It would be the overlapping, repeating heartbeat of a trillion-cell gravitational biosphere, just humming away in the dark.
This whole concept brings us face to face with our own biases, specifically something called chemical chauvinism. This is the inherently flawed assumption that life strictly requires carbon, water, and electromagnetism simply because, well, that's all we've ever experienced. But if we can reject those biases and accept that life is fundamentally just localized information and energy processing, the universe becomes infinitely richer.
So the crucial point is really summed up right here. Information isn't stored in molecular locks. It is stored in the mathematical harmony of the spheres. In dark biology, mass is destiny. chemistry is dead, and the heartbeat of the organism isn't the pumping of fluid. It is the silent, rippling symphony of gravity itself.
Please like and subscribe.